welcome to this deep dive. If you're tuning in right now, you are probably carrying around that lingering, sort of uncomfortable feeling that something in the underlying math of our world is just fundamentally broken.
Yeah.
And look, you don't need another surface-level summary of the symptoms. You definitely don't need a reminder of how the mechanics of our debt-based economy operate. You know the score.
Right. You're looking for the actual blueprints to fix it.
Exactly. And, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we are tearing into a really comprehensive manuscript, and we're specifically zeroing in on a section titled Chapter 7. It's called The Blueprint for a New Engine.
It's a truly remarkable piece of work. But before we dive into the specific solutions, let's just briefly frame the diagnosis that the earlier chapters laid out.
Yeah, good idea.
So the core premise is that we are trapped inside this economic engine where the actual mathematics of money creation guarantee a systemic loser. We have an architecture demanding infinite compound growth, which is
Violently clashing with physical reality.
exactly violently clashing with the physical reality of a finite planet. And while this friction generates immense societal heat, what is described here as the media landscape.
Yeah, our hyper-curated media, our devices, the algorithmic noise, it's functioning flawlessly to keep everyone distracted, divided, and utterly unable to imagine any structural alternative.
Which, brings us to the real meat of the discussion. So what do we do? And what makes this chapter so fascinating is how it completely bypasses traditional left-right politics.
Totally.
I mean, we really need to emphasize this. We are acting entirely as impartial guides today. We aren't taking any political sides, and neither does the source material. It doesn't waste time on partisan bickering. It just focuses purely on the mathematical structure of the engine itself. It provides a roadmap.
And we need to set a really crucial ground rule for this conversation right now.
Yeah.
The frameworks we are about to explore are not utopian fantasies.
They are not wishful thinking or some kind of drum circle idealism. These are mathematically sound, historically tested blueprints. The only reason these concepts feel foreign is that the screen has absolutely no incentive to show them to you.
Right.
Our goal today is to look right past that digital static.
Okay, let's unpack this. If we want to redesign the machine, we have to start with the engine block itself. Since we already understand the baseline, that our money supply is overwhelmingly created as interest-bearing debt by private banks, we can jump straight into the alternative. How do we change the actual issuance of currency?
You look at the rigorous legal and historical frameworks laid out by researchers in the text, people like Ellen Brown and Stephen Zarlenga. They hammer home a point that seems obvious once you hear it, but is completely absent from mainstream economics. And that is, money is not a force of nature.
It's not gravity.
Exactly. It isn't gravity. It is a human utility. It is a public tool.
Right.
What's fascinating here is that, logically, the right to create it should be a sovereign, democratic function, not a private monopoly.
So mechanically, what does that look like? I mean, if a private bank isn't loaning it into existence, who is creating the money and how does it actually get into my pocket?
Well, the blueprint maps out a transparent public body. Think of it as a monetary authority completely decoupled from private banking interests. And this body issues money debt-free.
So no interest attached at the source.
None. Instead of a bank creating $1 million, attaching an interest rate, and loaning it to a city to build a bridge, this public body simply creates the money and spends it directly into the real economy.
Wow.
You fund major infrastructure, healthcare, ecological restoration, or education by paying the engineers, the doctors, and the teachers directly with debt-free public money.
And the infrastructure itself becomes the asset backing the currency.
Exactly.
And the thing that really struck me here is the historical context. I mean, we have this collective amnesia where we just assume the current private debt model is the only way an economy has ever functioned.
Oh, absolutely.
But historically speaking, public money, whether it's colonial scrip or other sovereign issuances, that's actually much closer to the norm. Our current system is the historical aberration.
Precisely. The legal framework to revert to public money is entirely feasible, but, and this is a big but, changing the legal issuer is only half the battle. You also have to change the mathematics of how that money moves.
Right.
Which is where this blueprint gets highly technical and, frankly, brilliant.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because if you remove compound interest from the equation, which acts as the whip forcing everyone to constantly hustle just to serve as debt, you run into a new problem. How do you keep money moving?
Yes.
How do you prevent the ultra-wealthy from simply hoarding this new debt-free currency? To solve this, the text introduces Silvio Gazel's concept of the mirage.
Demurrage is one of those concepts that permanently changes how you view currency. Think of it like a parking ticket for your money.
Or a game of hot potato.
Yeah, exactly. Hot potato. In our current system, money has a schizophrenic nature. It's supposed to be a medium of exchange, but it is also used as a store of value. Those two functions are inherently at war with each other.
Right, because if you have excess capital, the smartest thing you can do is pull it out of circulation, hoard it, and let it accumulate interest.
Exactly. Demurrage flips that incentive entirely. It is a small, regular fee applied to money that just sits idle.
But wait, let me play devil's advocate here for a second. If I know my money is going to slowly decay or get taxed just for sitting in a savings account, wouldn't I just immediately pull it all out and buy gold or hoard real estate? How does a demurrage system prevent a massive flight to other assets?
It's a great question, and it's exactly why demurrage is designed to be applied specifically to the currency itself, to drive velocity. Yes, people will seek to park their wealth in hard assets, but to buy those assets, they have to spend the currency.
Ah, right, the transaction happens.
The money moves. If you're holding the currency, you are highly incentivized to spend it, invest it in a local productive enterprise, or, and this is key, lend it to someone else at zero interest, just to avoid the demurrage fee.
That's wild. So you lend it out for free just so someone else holds the hot potato for a while?
Precisely. The goal isn't to destroy wealth. The goal is to guarantee that the medium of exchange continues to circulate through the real economy rather than coagulating in offshore accounts.
It essentially makes money behave like a natural physical commodity. Apples rot, iron rusts. In the real world, things decay. Demurrage aligns money with the laws of thermodynamics.
Exactly, and the ripple effects of aligning money with physical reality are staggering. This brings us to the modeling done by Margaret Kennedy. She dedicated her work to analyzing the hidden mathematical mechanics of interest.
Let's actually dig into her math for a second, because this is the mechanism that dismantles the infinite growth paradigm. Kennedy points out that compound interest isn't just something you pay on your mortgage.
No.
It is embedded in the price of literally everything we buy.
Right. Think about the supply chain of just a simple loaf of bread. The farmer took out a loan for the tractor. The miller took out a loan for the grinding facility. The baker took out a loan for the ovens.
The trucking company took out loans for the fleet.
Yes. At every single stage of production, debt is being serviced. Kennedy's models calculated that, on average, upwards of 30 to 40% of the final cost of everyday goods and services goes strictly towards servicing the embedded interest of the capital used to produce them.
30 to 40%, that is insane. So her modeling shows that if you implement a public debt-free money system, you don't just eliminate personal debt stress. You structurally drop the cost of living across the board.
The artificial scarcity just evaporates.
Right, because right now we're forced to grow the economy by 3% every year. Not because we actually need more stuff, but mathematically we have to create enough new money to pay back the principal plus the interest of the old loans.
That's the infinite growth engine.
If you kill the interest, you kill the growth imperative.
You decouple human progress from ecological destruction. We could finally transition to a steady-state economy, one that balances with the physical limits of the planet, designed to meet human needs rather than endlessly feed an extractive financial algorithm.
I want you, the listener, to just hold that thought in your mind for a moment. Think about the background radiation of financial stress in your own life. The pressure of inflation, the creeping cost of housing, that relentless treadmill feeling where you have to run faster every year just to stay in the exact same place.
It's exhausting.
Now imagine what your life would look like if the foundational math of the economy wasn't actively working against you, if that embedded interest was just gone. It is a profound shift in perspective.
It is, but recognizing the math is only the first step. The blueprint makes a very sharp, pragmatic pivot here.
Yeah, we have to get realistic.
We cannot just sit around an academic seminar waiting for global central banks or federal governments to voluntarily dismantle the source of their own power. That top-down macro change isn't going to happen overnight.
No, the mechanics running the current engine are not going to fire themselves.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to leverage the insights of systems theorist Donella Meadows. She spent her career analyzing how massive, complex systems actually change.
And what did she find?
She proved that the most powerful leverage points in any system are rarely the loud, dramatic interventions. The real power lies in quiet, structural changes to the rules, and ultimately, changing the paradigm, the underlying belief about the system's purpose.
Which is why the most exciting part of this blueprint is that these quiet interventions are already happening.
Yeah.
People are completely bypassing traditional banks right now. Take mutual credit networks, for example.
Yes.
I had heard the term before, but seeing the mechanics laid out is brilliant. You have networks of businesses trading goods and services without ever touching fiat currency. A plumber fixes the pipes for a bakery. The plumber gets credited on a digital ledger. The baker gets debited.
Simple as that.
Then the plumber uses those credits to get their van serviced by a local mechanic within the network. They are effectively issuing their own zero-interest credit based entirely on their actual productive capacity.
It is a closed-loop system of localized trust, and it completely starves the extractive macroeconomic engine of fuel.
And then you have land trusts. Instead of real estate being treated as a speculative casino chip, a community land trust buys a parcel of land and permanently removes it from the open market.
Right.
They own the land collectively, and individuals can own the houses sitting on it, but the land itself can never be flipped for profit. It decommodifies the very ground we walk on.
Both of those examples, mutual credit and land trusts, are modern manifestations of reclaiming the commons. This is a central pillar of the blueprint. And to truly understand the commons, we have to look at the groundbreaking empirical research of Nobel laureate Elinor Ostrom.
I have to admit, I chuckled when I got to the Ostrom section.
Why is that?
Because anyone who has ever taken Econ 101, or honestly, anyone who has ever had a terrible college roommate who ate all the shared groceries, has been preached the gospel of the tragedy of the commons.
Oh, of course.
It's taught as an immutable law of human nature. If you give a group of people a shared resource, like a pasture or a water source, they will inevitably act in their own selfish short-term interest, overconsume it, and destroy it. Therefore, the only solutions are strict government control or complete private ownership.
Yeah.
But Ostrom took a sledgehammer to that entire theory, didn't she?
She absolutely demolished it, and she did it with decades of hard, real-world data. Mainstream economics was operating on theoretical assumptions about human selfishness. Ostrom actually went out into the field.
She looked at reality.
Exactly. She studied Swiss alpine pastures, irrigation systems in Nepal, and fisheries in Maine, and she found that the tragedy of the commons is largely a myth. Human beings do not naturally destroy shared resources.
So how do they prevent the selfish roommate scenario at a societal level?
Through specific design principles that communities naturally develop when left to their own devices. Ostrom found that successful commons have clear boundaries. They have local rulemaking that involves the people actually using the resource.
Makes sense.
Most importantly, they use graduated sanctions, meaning if someone breaks the rules, the community corrects them locally, scaling up the penalty only if the behavior continues. Communities are perfectly capable of self-regulating and managing shared wealth sustainably.
So where does the tragedy part come from?
The so-called tragedy only happens when those local community bonds are deliberately severed by outside forces, forcing people into artificial, hyper-individualistic competition.
That is a total paradigm shift. It completely rewrites the mainstream narrative of human nature from one of inherent greed to one of inherent cooperation.
Yes.
And that feeds perfectly into Charles Eisenstein's concept of the gift economy. Now, let's be crystal clear about what this means because it's easy to misinterpret. A gift economy is not a system where everyone just gives away their labor for free and we all sing songs.
Far from it. An economy organized around the principles of a gift is fundamentally about reciprocity and relationship. In our current transactional economy, the goal is to extract maximum value and leave no lingering connection.
Right. I buy a coffee, I leave, we never speak again.
Exactly. In a gift paradigm, the goal is to generate genuine contribution, which creates a web of mutual obligation and deep social capital. It recognizes that true resilience comes from interdependence.
And we're seeing this map out on a massive scale. David Bollier's research on the global commons movement tracks millions of people who have already quietly walked away from the old paradigm. You have global networks sharing open source software, developing open hardware agricultural tools, and creating seed-sharing libraries to bypass corporate agricultural monopolies.
They aren't waiting for a legislative victory.
No, they're building the new engine while the old one is still sputtering.
It is incredibly inspiring, but we also have to ground this in the brutal reality of power. The blueprint does not shy away from this. The people at the top of the current financial hierarchy, the mechanics who benefit immensely from the artificial scarcity and the compound interest, are not going to gracefully retire because we started a few local seed libraries and mutual credit networks.
No, History is painfully clear on this. Whenever sovereign money or alternative systems gain too much traction, the response from entrenched power is usually suppression, co-optation, or worse. So the ultimate strategic question is, how do everyday people systematically dismantle an engine that is protected by such vast, concentrated global power? If violence is off the table, what is the actual mechanism of resistance?
This raises an important question, perhaps the most critical one in the entire blueprint. To answer it, we turn to the framework developed by Gene Sharp, arguably the foremost scholar on nonviolent struggle.
Okay.
Sharp spent his life analyzing how dictatorships and entrenched power structures actually fall. He famously cataloged 198 distinct methods of nonviolent action.
Let's get specific here. What do those methods actually look like in practice? Because I think people hear nonviolent action and they just picture holding a cardboard sign in a designated protest zone.
That is exactly the misconception Sharp's work shatters. Protests and persuasion are only a tiny fraction of his list. The real leverage comes from what he calls methods of non-cooperation and nonviolent intervention.
Like what?
We are talking about targeted economic boycotts. We are talking about mass coordinated debt strikes. We are talking about the deliberate creation of parallel institutions like the mutual credit networks we discussed that systematically replace the functions of the state or the corporate monopoly.
It's essentially political jujitsu.
Exactly. But the overarching thesis of Sharp's work is what matters most. All power, no matter how militarized, deeply entrenched, or heavily funded, is fundamentally fragile. It depends entirely, 100%, on the ongoing consent, obedience, and daily cooperation of the people it rules.
That is a staggering realization. A massive global bank is incredibly powerful, but its power is entirely dependent on millions of people waking up every day and agreeing to take out loans and service their debt.
Yes.
A multinational corporation needs workers to show up and consumers to buy. The architecture of the machine looks impenetrable from the outside, but its foundation is made entirely of our daily habits.
The moment a critical mass of people systematically withdraws that cooperation, the foundation crumbles. You do not have to attack the engine head-on to destroy it. You just have to starve it of its fuel.
And this is where the theory becomes immediate practical action for you listening right now. Every single predatory loan you refuse to take is fuel withheld from the machine. Every dollar you route through a local credit union instead of a monolithic megabank is a withdrawal of cooperation.
Exactly.
When a business joins a mutual credit network and stops borrowing fiat currency to manage its cash flow, it is starving the beast. Every community land trust that pulls acreage off the speculative market is permanently capping a geyser of extractive profit.
It transforms everyday economic decisions into acts of profound structural resistance. And it starts with the simple, radical act of seeing the system clearly. Every conversation that strips away the jargon and exposes the math of the current engine is a critical intervention. Historically, shifting the collective understanding of what is real and what is possible is the only way deeply entrenched systems have ever been replaced.
Which perfectly sets up this brilliant quote used in the text from the cultural theorist Mark Fisher. It is easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism.
Oof, yeah.
We have been locked inside this financial architecture for so long that it's become a prison made of imagination. Our minds literally default to Hollywood apocalyptic scenarios before they can picture a localized, debt-free, steady-state economy.
It's true.
So what does this all mean? It means imaginations are meant to be changed. They change when we start talking about the actual mechanics of money. They change when researchers like Ostrom and Kennedy provide the hard data proving that cooperation and debt-free systems aren't just possible, they are mathematically superior.
Absolutely.
They change when you finally realize that the steering wheel you've been furiously gripping is completely disconnected from the tires, and you stop feeling crazy for noticing that the car is driving itself off a cliff.
That really is the ultimate synthesis of these blueprints. The economic engine we currently inhabit is not a permanent fixture of the universe. It is not an immutable law of nature. It was designed by human beings operating under very specific, flawed assumptions, largely to benefit a very specific group of people.
Right.
And because it was built by human hands are entirely capable of dismantling it and building something better. The mathematical models for a debt-free world exist. The historical precedents are well documented. The living, breathing experiments of the commons are scaling globally as we speak.
The only missing ingredient is enough people looking clearly at the old engine, recognizing the math for what it is, and systematically withdrawing their consent. You have the blueprint now. The alternative is staring us right in the face.
It really is.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over. We just spent a lot of time talking about how to withdraw your consent from the financial engine by starving it of its primary fuel debt and fiat transactions. But let's bring it back to where we started. Remember the screen,
Oh, yes.
that pervasive digital architecture designed to keep you distracted, isolated, and unable to focus on these exact solutions. If you are actively taking steps to starve the financial engine of your money, how might you simultaneously begin to starve the screen of its primary fuel, which is your attention? What does a demirage look like for your daily digital focus? How do you build a protected commons inside your own mind, free from algorithmic extraction?
That is a vital and urgent question for anyone looking to reclaim their autonomy.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. Keep questioning the math, keep starving the engine, and we will catch you next time.